Is it working better now? Maybe I should hold it closer. Thank you for being here. We're going to be talking about translations into English and into and out of two of the major languages of the subcontinent, Hindi and Tamil. We are very successful publishers here. We have managers of literature and culture. We have the head of the NBT, Rita Chowdhury. Starting from that side, NirupamaKotru, to whom we owe great thanks because she's put the Sahitya Academy list of, I believe, 7,000 books online for sale. Earlier you had to go to the Academy's bookshop in Delhi to get their books. Rita Chowdhury, director of NBT, writer and translator, award-winning writer. We have Kalpana Raina from New York. We want to ask you what the Asia Center does for our writers. We have SatyanandNirupam, the head of Rajkumar Publishing in Hindi. There's me. There's my very good friend Kannan Sundaram, who publishes into and from Tamil. And fellow publisher, editor of translations, Minakshi Thakur from Amazon Westland Amazon. She's got big news for us because she's launched a new imprint called Ekha, is it? Okay, but before that, we've been through some of these discussions before. I guess they'll bear repeating because we have fresh panelists. I'd like to just remind people of two things. One was three things really. Sometime in the 90s, one of the first major encyclopedias of Commonwealth literature by Benson and Connolly, I think it was Routledge who published it. It had a very long entry on Sanskrit, but nothing about the Indian languages. The second thing is, that was early 90s, 1998 April, I remember that date, 8th of April. The Christian Science Monitor ran a headline, front page. It said, "The rise of the techno-coolie, India clerks for the world." It admired Indian proficiency in English, talked about our backroom officers and how a big population of graduates could handle the English language really like natives. But it didn't say anything, it was a very long report. It didn't say anything about the quality of literary writing, the Indian sensibility with literature, and of course not a word about translations. Then the other milestone I want to share with you, which is actually quite surprising because it was as recent as 2006, Sheldon Pollock, who is now general editor and head of the Murthy Classical Library, in 2006 he published with Oxford University Press a book called Sanskrit, Language of the Gods. It's nearly, I think it's a little over 600 pages. There's not a word about translation in that book. The word is not even mentioned. So against this background, we're wondering whether it is indifference or lack of interest, lack of knowledge, which somehow has blocked travels. I'm not excusing our tribe. Publishers haven't worked hard enough. Perhaps we don't know how to promote. Academia has done something about translation outside the country. So I've come prepared with all sorts of notes. So question one. Yes, how much of this responsibility is it that editors and publishers have failed to develop strategies, multiple strategies to rocket these rhythms outside? I'd like to start with Raina. I'm sorry, Kalpana Raina. You live in New York. What do you feel? Please share what you feel. And there's the Asian Cultural Center there, isn't it?
There is an Asian Cultural Center, but I'm sorry.
I just want to know whether they host our writers, how they're introduced.
There are, good afternoon everyone.
There are multiple Asian cultural centers in New York. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Maybe it's the Asia Society that you're referring to. Yes, that is a major force, but it's really, they do host cultural events. They host prominent writers and they host films and artists, but their main purpose, as in other Asian centers in New York, is really to further the political causes of America in Asia, the political agenda of the US in Asia, and culture, in my opinion, becomes sort of a way of hiding behind culture to further the political agenda. But so I'm not sure that anyone can look to any of those centers for a lot of support. But with your indulgence, I'd just like to speak a little bit about.
Could you talk about Yali?
Well, just how I got interested in Yali, which will kind of shed a little bit of light on some of the issues that you raised. I joined the board of Words Without Borders about 3 or 4 years ago, which is really the first online journal that just does translated work and does fantastic work. And it was in connection with my association with them and with a lot of publishers in New York that I heard these astounding numbers of, and I think these are by sales, and like every statistic, there's a different way of interpreting it. But I heard astounding numbers, like anywhere between 3 to 5% of books sold in the US are translated works.
But not from our language.
No, which is the point I'm getting to. That 3 to 5%, wherever it falls, includes Spanish, French, German, a fair amount, some East European, hardly anything from Asia. I mean, obviously there are a lot of writers of Indian origin in English, but in terms of translated works, it's just abysmal. I mean, it's negligible. So if you excluded Africa, Middle East, Asia entirely from that number. And that kind of got me thinking about how one could bring more translated works from India in particular, but also from South Asia into the US publishing world. And that's where Yali was born, from an attempt to bring more works out into English. But Yali kind of morphed into also translating between regional languages in India, where I was convinced by the advisory board that there was a great need for that as well. So it's doing things at both ends, and I'll hand it back over to you now. We can talk a little bit more about that later.
Thank you, Kalpana. I'm sorry we couldn't connect earlier to discuss this alone. Minakshi, well, you worked with a giant trade publisher for setting up this cutting edge with Kartika. My question for you is, do you see a big change in the market with marginalized literature moving up sideways? And will the mythologies and ideologies of these communities be a great counter to the anthropologies and the sociologies of marginalized literature? In fact, Kannan's father, Sundaram, I read a translation of an article he wrote in 1982, in which he said, the experience is so different that no non-Dalit can really understand this. But he also says something very important. He says, just because you've had a profound experience, it doesn't mean you can also write very well about it. So, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, and how you brought this fantastic color into Minakshi, and well, the translations that you've done, and your recent initiative.
3 questions. I'll ask you to repeat the next 2 after I answer the first one. Whether I've seen change in the last few years. Not a big change, but a small and definitely positive change, especially in the last 3 years. You were the first ones probably to start publishing translations from the languages into English, and Katha did a great job of it. In fact, I've worked with Katha for a while. That's where I began, and then I came to HarperCollins, and then Karthika and I, we set up the translations in print. But I've seen a positive change in the last 2-3 years, where other publishers have also, Sivapriya at Penguin had a very, very strong list, and they've really worked at it. And some of the books in the last 2-3 years have broken out and have become large bestsellers. So there is a change, and especially this year and late last year, we saw some of the translations getting the big prizes. Benjamin and Vyapari just got the Hindu award. Perumal is being talked about everywhere. Vivek Shanbag. So yes, and it's very encouraging.
Thank you. I also want to know about your own work. How you bring the local color into your translations. Do you work closely with the translator? I just want to try and bring this out because what are the strategies that the publishers today are doing? Perhaps when I was your age, I didn't do enough. So you have this.
Yes, the way we look at translations and deal with translations, edit and commission, identify translators, talk to them. The whole conversation has changed vastly. Punachi, you asked me about Punachi. I haven't published the English translation. Westland has, and Karthika commissioned it with Kannan, and Kalyan Raman is sitting here, the fabulous translator. He just left, But after the English translation came out and after I joined Westland, we decided to move Punachi into 8 Indian languages. And we've done 3 so far, Malayalam, Kannada and Telugu. And we're working on the rest, we'll bring them out this year. Since I don't read in all those languages, I can only edit the Hindi and I can understand a bit of the Bangla if you read it out to me. We depend on a lot of people who can vet the translation, journalists, writers whom I've known before because I was at Harper. We depend on a lot of people. We identify with the original publisher. So Kannan and I have worked together. We discussed on who are the potential translators. Some samples did not work at all. And a full Hindi translation we had to turn down because it just didn't work. And here's the translator has translated other texts before and he's done it well, but it's the text, it depends on the text and whether you are engaging well with the text, whether you're right for the text or not. So the pairing has to be right. So we work on that a lot and it's a really slow process, but a very interesting one.
Thank you. I'll come back to you a little later. My questions for you. I did ask him on email and he responded. I said, what are the major concerns you have as a publisher translating into Tamil and out of Tamil? Do you help choose a text for your publisher, or when someone comes to you and says, for instance, as I did for Tiruvallur University, when they needed a book, I said, can you help me to choose something that's not too long, which isn't too controversial, but has enough of the Indian causes, the issues of Tamil Nadu, of society. So he helped me to choose a text. So there you see, you can actually, and also the board asked me to choose. So I said I will consult with the publisher. So we made a choice like that. 4 years before, Kalyan Raman translated Vadi Masal, again Kannan's imprint, the Tamil, and that's been very successful because it's been picked up by universities and colleges for study. So could you talk about this? And also another question, are your bankers happy with you?
So, translating into Tamil and translating, sort of selling rights for Tamil works into other languages. So when we translate into Tamil, we do it from Indian languages and then we also do it from international languages. One thing, of course, is obvious is that if you want to do Malayalam, you do Bashir, so that those things are easy. And then it's also what people would suggest that look at this book. Friends would tell you that's a great book and all that. And then you take those books, give it to your editors. I have editors who can read in Malayalam, I have editors who can read in Hindi, English. So I reach out to them depending on, and French. And if they say, if I trust their taste, and if they say, this is a good book, then, we go ahead. If there's an English translation, it helps in the sense that you can get a feel of what the work is like before you decide. Sometimes, we do even without that. You just trust the editor or the advisor or the translator to do that for you. And I've been going to Frankfurt Book Fair since 2007. So then, picks up books I pitch to you by editors or by translation promoting agencies. Then you bring those books and you take your time reading them, and then you respond to if you like the book. Another thing we do is that we are building a what I would call a modern classic series from the world languages. Then when I'm going for a totally new language like Icelandic, which has now been translated to Tamil before, then I would check, do you have a Nobel Prize winner? Is there a Booker winning author? Then that's a little easier to bring in first. And then you can also bring in other authors. So it varies from language to language, country to country, how we do this. But we do about 25% of our total list in translations, and we publish about 70 books per year.
So you choose what to translate into Tamil, or you have a team that helps?
So from Tamil, of course, that does not depend on what I might feel. That depends on what the publishers want. Usually, what I see is that we have a list of our great authors, but when you go to a book fair and try to sell books, they may not get picked up. Your list may be different, and what they like would be different. So that you sort of have to have a feel of which book might work internationally. And then that's the book you bring into your catalog. Though you may have a different list in your own mind about what's the great works of your writing. So that shift has to happen, that you learn as you work on book fairs, what kind of books they are looking for. And that's the books you take to them. In between now and then, you get to also sell a book that you also believe in. That does happen, but that does not always happen.
But okay, when you go to these book fairs, what is it that they're looking for when they come to you for Tamil? Is it contemporary life? Is it something set 50 years ago?
So modern classic is very difficult. With the support of J. Vasudevan, I have recently sold the rights for Sundaram Story of a Tamarind Tree to Amazon Crossing. But that's really an exception because the questions that you ask is the author like? Is the author young enough to be writing more works? Does she really come? Can he travel? Does he speak English? So all those things matter.
Thank you. To Rita Chowdhury, this whole process takes a very long time of selecting works, translating, editing, publishing. You head this giant organization, NBT. When you're a writer yourself, what sort of changes would you like to effect? And have you been able to influence? How much have you been able to influence? Because people... Oh, right. Now can you hear me? Okay. I come and whisper into your ear. No, I really want to know how you choose your books and how the editors in different languages in NBT, how they respond to your suggestions, what their comments are, and how you select the books. Adan Pradhan, and that's one. And the children's section, do you also handle the CBT? Children's Book Trust also?
No.
You don't do that. Okay, can you talk about the National Book Trust? Yeah. I'm not talking about the textbooks division, but the translations. Could you please talk about these?
Only National Book Trust.
National Book Trust. And what really is the difference between the Sahitya Academy and the NBT? Because sometimes I feel
Yes, very different. So, I'm a director of National Book Trust.
and we publish different books under different series. One series is Adan series. So under this Adan series is interlanguage translation in India, in Indian languages. So we have language editors, we have English editors, and there are different methods of selecting books. Some writers, they translate the book and they send it to NBT, who is I'm the publisher. Director is the publisher of the organization, of National Book Trust. So I send it down to our chief editor, then it goes to a particular language editor. So first the language editor then go through the book, then if he thinks fit, then he gives his comment, or he may also decide to send it to some reviewer. So it is a process. Then it comes with their comments. If they suggest, then we have chairman, and finally the policy maker.
That's yeah, that's a very superficial. I understand that.
Yeah.
Would you ever think of collaborating with a private publisher who's also interested in multilingual program like what Minakshi is doing? Is there any link at all with the private publishers? None at all? I wish there would be, because you're sitting on this repository.
Yeah, but we take books from other publishers, write translation, and we publish different private publishers' book also.
But your promotion is really...
Promotion we do, but not in the translation, but we take the different publishers' book to international book fairs and especially in B2B fairs, try to sell the rights and try to promote Indian books.
Okay.
Abroad.
I wish our books were available right through the country. It's not easy to get the books.
Yeah, it is, MBT has a mandate to promote Indian books abroad. So we select some books and take to other international book fairs, display. So that is our own promotion policy.
Okay, policy. Thank you. Nirupama, could you comment on your work and what you've taken over recently? Again, you have is it difficult to hear? Okay. Thank you. That's rather like our professional. Everything's so Thanks a lot. We need Hindi to untangle us. Could you comment on your work, and since you have entered this so recently, how you see the landscape, and it's a really very critical time when translation is being recognized everywhere. At one time, hundreds of years ago, the Dubashis who got all the trade and all the even armies moving, they were very rich, but our translators are not rich. They hardly make any money. Baba Abdullah saying that the typist makes more money than the translator. So could you comment on what you would like to do and what you can do, because that's important too. You have a great power now to do something.
So let me start by giving you some positives, and then let's share our concerns. Maybe we should discuss that further, right? So just to distinguish between, because you were mentioning NBT. NBT comes under the publications division, right? No? Okay, it's a separate trust. But Sahitya Academy, which is one of the academies that I administer, it is the National Academy of Letters. I mean, that really is the mandate of Sahitya Academy to link India through languages. So being on this panel was important because I really wanted to tell everybody here a little bit more. Of course, we have people here who know about Sahitya Academy publications, but then most of the crowd here outside I see is the millennials, and I don't think they have a clue, which is of course the negative side, which I'll just come to in a bit. Now, Sahitya Academy really is the oldest publisher, if you think about it. 1956 was the first book they published was in Marathi called Bhagwan Buddha by Kaushal into Hindi. And I was just going through the history, discussing with my secretary, Sahitya Academy, Mr. Rao, who could be here. He's a good friend of yours. He's telling me, you're in fact one of the translators we have worked with, right? See, initially we now publish in 24 languages, by the way. I don't think any other publisher does that in India. which is the 22 languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution, plus 2 more, Rajasthani and English. So how it works is that, because you were also asking her how NBT picks up books for translations, right? So Sahitya Academy, 65% of all publications of Sahitya Academy are translation, right? So that's the mainstay of Sahitya Academy. So how they shortlist is, we have, as you know, the national awards, the Sahitya Academy Awards. Now, Sahitya Academy never awards their own publication, so it's always an outside publication. So once you recognize an author who has published in any of these languages, then you pick up and commission that work for translation into any other major Indian language. And the first 2 decades, in fact, you had such good knowledge, probably my parents' generation, that you had authors who could translate from Tamil into Marathi directly, or Gujarati into, any other, Bengali, for instance. Now that is a problem. So what you do is you have the linked languages, Hindi and English, and typically you'll first translate from, say, Tamil or Telugu into Hindi, and then you have another translator who will do it from Hindi to Gujarati. But that is really the mandate of Sahitya Academy, and there's no letting down in that. Translations of all possible, good works into languages where to create demand. Luckily we don't have the pressure of which many private publishers have of targets, and you know how it works in government. It is a big plus. So we can really push and promote all Indian languages. That is really the work of Sahitya.
There's also the journal you do, Indian literature, which is just contributed strongly, because lots of materials have been picked up from that.
Yes.
And the best of Indian literature, also those 4 volumes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying that. But the promotion, all of us together, we've not really been able to move this giant body of our works hard enough. What is this opacity? And I'd really like to also involve the audience here. Can we break through this? Is it? Can we not link up with academia, because translation is becoming part of culture studies, literacy studies? Mm-hmm. So I'd like to ask you, since you have your enormous market. First of all, the question I have for you is, when we say Hindi, any language, it's not just one form of it. There's different parts of Tamil Nadu itself. There are different kinds of Tamil, so there are different kinds of Hindi. So I'd like you to comment on that. And also, if you have this big list, what are the kind of books you keep alive when things go out of fashion? What you would like to bring back? Again, there's almost the same question I have that I've asked Kannan. How do you choose? And do you also entertain what the popular demand? And how do you distinguish between popular, pulp, which is bordering on literature? Because that's one of my big concerns, that really serious, wonderful writing is somehow getting mixed up with what I really like to say is sort of glamour writing, like non-writing really, but because there is the social media, there's a lot of noise and buzz. Sorry? Yes. Hindi being such a huge market, please comment on these things, how you choose, how you publish. By the way, I've got your collection of short stories by Krishnan, which you sent to me here in translation. Please talk about these issues. And afterwards, if we could have the audience participate, if anyone has any questions. How much time do we have?
ढेर सारे सवाल हैं, और कहाँ से शुरू करें, कहाँ पहुँचना है? 5 मिनट। असल में हम कैसे चुनते हैं, राजकमल प्रकाशन कैसे चुनता है? तो नहीं, यहाँ सभी भाषाओं के लोग हैं, और मैं वो बात कहना चाहूँगा जो सबके लिए मायने रखती है। कृष्ण कुमार जी की बात, हिंदी के हमारे एक सम्मानित लेखक हैं, और वो बेसिकली शिक्षाविद हैं, और उन्होंने शिक्षा शास्त्र पर काफ़ी अच्छी किताबें लिखी हैं, बच्चों के लिए बहुत अच्छी किताबें लिखी हैं। कहानियाँ की भी वे लिखते हैं, कहानियाँ तो उनकी कहानियों की किताबें हमने छापी है। और वो हमारे उस किस्म के लेखक हैं कि जिनकी लगभग सारी किताबें हमारे यहाँ से छपी हैं। तो वो जो लिखते हैं वो हमारे यहाँ छपता ही है। लेकिन हम भारतीय भाषाओं से कैसे चुनते हैं या हम बाहर की भाषाओं से कैसे चुनते हैं, अनुवाद पर हम लोग बात करने के लिए इकट्ठा हो गए हैं, तो मैं उसी पर बात करूँगा। गिरीश कर्नाड हो, युवानंद मूर्ति हो, भालचंद्र माणे हो, ऐसे बहुत सारे लेखक हैं हिंदी में, सीताकांत महापात्र हो। जब उनको इनमें से अधिकांश जिनका अखिल भारतीय स्तर पर कोई पहचान अभी बना नहीं था, बन रहा था या बनना शुरू हो रहा था, साहित्य अकादमी अवार्ड भी नहीं मिला था या ज्ञानपीठ अवार्ड तो बहुत बात की बात है, राजकमल ने तब उनको पब्लिश किया था। बहुत शुरू से राजकमल इस मामले में हमेशा सभी भारतीय भाषाओं में जो भी नया लिखा जा रहा है, अच्छा लिखा जा रहा है, उस पर ध्यान देता रहा है। एक संवाद बनाने की कोशिश इसकी रही है और उसमें अच्छे लेखकों को चुनकर छापने की कोशिश रही है। बीच में यह सिलसिला थोड़ा कमज़ोर जरूर पड़ा और उसकी वजह शायद यह भी रही कि हिंदी में ऐसे लोग कम हुए जो भारतीय भाषाओं से जिनका संवाद ज़्यादा रहा हो। भारतीय भाषाओं में हिंदी में अनुवाद करने वाले लोग तो हैं, लेकिन हिंदी के ऐसे लोग जो भारतीय भाषा जानते हों, मतलब बांग्ला, मराठी, कन्नड़, तेलुगु ये जानते हों और हिंदी में उन भाषाओं की रचनाओं को लेकर आ रहे हों, ऐसे लोग इधर कम हुए हैं। और उसकी वजह शायद यह भी है कि अनुवादकों, जैसी बात हो रही थी कि अनुवादकों को अच्छा मानदेय कैसे मिले, वो अनुवादक अच्छा पैसा कैसे कमा सकते हैं अनुवाद करके, साहित्य अनुवाद करके, वो शिफ्ट कर गए हैं। जो अच्छे अनुवादक हैं वो दूसरे तरह के प्रोजेक्ट्स में शिफ्ट कर गए हैं, लिटरेचर ट्रांसलेशन के बजाय। अच्छे अच्छे पब्लिशर्स के पास भी बजट कम है। जो मल्टीनेशनल कंपनियां हिंदी में काम करने आई हैं, जो अच्छा बजट लेके आई हैं, उनका भी बजट ट्रांसलेशन के लिए कोई बहुत अच्छा नहीं है, अगर फंडेड किताबें नहीं हैं। अगर मैं गलत कह रहा हूँ तो कह सकते हैं। ऐसी स्थिति में हिंदी में अच्छे अनुवादक कैसे तैयार हों, ये हमारे लिए बड़ा चैलेंज है कि हम अच्छे अनुवादकों को किताबों के ट्रांसलेशन तक कैसे उसमें इंगेज रखें और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा किताबें क्वालिटी में ट्रांसलेट करा सकें। ऐसे में अनुवाद बहुत हो रहा है हिंदी में, बहुत सारी किताबें बाजार में आ रही हैं, लेकिन हमें ये कहना पड़ेगा कि बहुत क्वालिटी का काम कम आ रहा है। ऐसा ये नहीं है कि मैं किसी एक प्रकाशन के लिए कह रहा हूँ। अगर हम भी साल में 10 किताबें ट्रांसलेट कर रहे हैं या 100 किताबें ट्रांसलेट कर रहे हैं तो 90% काम के लिए तो हम भी गारंटी ले सकते हैं, 10% काम उसमें नहीं ले सकते। तो ऐसे में हम लोगों के सामने एक बड़ा चैलेंज ये है कि कैसे लोगों को, हम सबको ये प्रयास करना चाहिए कि भारतीय भाषाओं में आपस में भाषा सीखने का उद्यम हो और अच्छे अनुवादकों को हम एक दूसरे को बताएं कि कन्नड़ से हिंदी में अनुवाद करने वाले ये हैं और हिंदी से कन्नड़ में अनुवाद करने वाले ये हैं। ये सिलसिला किसी तरह से अगर हम लोग आपस में बना सकते हैं तो आने वाला समय बहुत अच्छा हो सकता है, क्योंकि खराब अनुवाद की वजह से अनुवाद का बाजार खराब हुआ है और पाठक अनुदित किताबों में दिलचस्पी कम लेना शुरू किए हुए हैं। वो ग्लैमरस नाम, जो आपने कहा ग्लैमरस राइटर, ग्लैमरस नाम देख करके जो मीडिया में एक ऑरा बन जाता है उस मूल भाषा की किताब का, उसके लिए चमक दमक में वो ट्रांसलेटेड किताबें तो खरीद लेते हैं, लेकिन वो किताब पढ़ करके उनका मन खराब होता है, उनका टेस्ट खराब होता है और फिर वो आगे दूसरी किताब खरीदने में हिचकते हैं। तो हम अच्छी किताबें जब उनके सामने अच्छे अनुवाद में रखना शुरू करेंगे तो धीरे धीरे फिर से पाठकों की संख्या बढ़ेगी और जब पाठकों की संख्या बढ़ेगी तो निश्चित रूप से अनुवादकों के लिए भी आर्थिक जो बजट है वो हमारा प्रकाशक बढ़ा सकेंगे।
थैंक यू।
इस दिशा में बात आगे बढ़े तो कुछ शायद मेरे लिए भी कुछ काम की चीज़ें निकल जाए।
Anyone in the audience would like to contribute to this, or is someone, anything else on the panel that anyone would like to talk about? Kalpana, would you like to answer, please?
I just wanted to point out one thing, that I'm very interested in listening to what you have to say. And one of the things that we started with Yali is consciously not to focus on Hindi, Bangla, Tamil, even though our first book in the US will be a Tamil collection of stories of Ambai. But to really give prominence and find these other languages. My own mother tongue is Kashmiri. And from that experience, I realized how underrepresented some languages are, like Kashmiri or Oriya or Assamese. And I'm hoping that YALI will be able to move the needle a little bit on some of those languages as opposed to the major languages.
इसमें नेशनल बुक ट्रस्ट और साहित्य अकादमी की भूमिका बहुत बड़ी है। ये दोनों माफ़ कीजिएगा, ये आप लोग के समय की बात नहीं है, ये पीछे से चीज़ें चली आ रही हैं कि मतलब जो उसकी आइडेंटिटी थी, जो बनाने के पीछे जो मकसद था, वो मकसद ये संस्थाएं भूल गई। ये साहित्य भारतीय भाषाओं और भारतीय भाषाओं के साहित्य के प्रमोशन के लिए थी, ये पब्लिशिंग हाउस नहीं थी। अब ये पब्लिशिंग हाउस और बुक फेयर कोऑर्डिनेटर्स के तौर पे सामने आ गए और ये खुद ही जो है पब्लिशर्स के तौर पे और पब्लिशर के सामने खड़े, जबकि इन सारे पब्लिशर्स को साथ लेके भारतीय भाषा और भारतीय भाषाओं के साहित्य को दुनिया भर में और सभी एक भाषा का दूसरी भाषा क्षेत्र में जाकर के प्रमोशन के लिए बनी थी और मदद के लिए थी। वो जो एक लाइफलाइन क्रिएट करना था कि अच्छे ट्रांसलेटर कल्टीवेट किए जाए, वहाँ से कुछ फंड जनरेट किया जाए, जहाँ ट्रेनिंग वर्कशॉप, वो लाइफलाइन खत्म कर दी गई। उसको फिर से अगर आप लोग जिंदा कर सके या चल रहा है तो उसको मतलब बहुत ही अच्छे ढंग से उसको अगर आगे बढ़ाया जाए, तो इसमें मुझे लगता है कि हम सब लोगों का भला होगा।
True. Also, lexic.
We do 150 workshops in a year for writing and translations. So I think that's a large number. Sahitya Academy participates in fairs everywhere in the country and abroad. And it's not that they're a publisher. No, that's not what I meant. That is not. I mean, this is.
मैंने वही कहा कि अगर हो रहा है तो उसको
ये कहना गलत है आपका कि वो publishers के सामने खड़े हैं।
जैसे
Sahitya Academy is not.
ने बीच में छत्तीसगढ़ में कुछ बोलियों में जो वर्कशॉप किया ट्रांसलेशन का, वो काफी वहाँ पर अच्छा काम हुआ। ऐसा वहाँ पर प्रोडक्टिव चीजें सामने आई, अच्छे अनुवादक सामने आए और वहाँ उसके बाद छत्तीसगढ़ की बोलियों का साहित्य बहुत तेजी से सामने आया।
आप हमारे वर्कशॉप्स में कभी आए तो आपकी शिकायत जरूर दूर हो जाएगी। There's one more thing we need to discuss with me. Yeah, just one more spot, because we haven't really shared our concerns. You were saying how to increase interest in translation. Now, unfortunately, this has become a niche product. You know that translating Tamil, a great piece of Tamil literature for somebody who's only Bengali, Hindi, and English. How do you do it? So one is promotion, and what sells with the new, the millennials is social media, unfortunately, and all of us have been very slow at taking to it, especially Sahitya Academy. Since I came, I've been pushing them, and now you see the number of tweets that gone up to like 25 a day, minimum. So, you have to really create a demand for this, otherwise we supply a lot.
No, that's
but
true. And also,
other than, our age group, which is aware, say that there is this book, and like you said, they weren't available. So it was tough. Even for somebody who knows about a Sahitya Academy publication, access was very difficult. You have to just wait. Yes. Next fair I'll go to Sahitya Academy store and pick up a
Absolutely
book.
right, yes.
So which is why I was happy you mentioned in the beginning that we have gone online. We are adding titles all the time.
Thank you, Nirupama. And also this, that naturally private publishers were, driven by profit. Publishers have to eat. When you look at new material, what they think will sell, some of them are hunches that work, some of them don't. The publisher tends to neglect writers of an older era. Absolutely vital in building the entire scene and transition.
You don't have the pressure.
You don't have the pressure, so you have to have more. Now, some comments from the audience, 2 or 3. Is there a mic to pass around? Yeah. Kalyan first. Our star translator first, Kalyan.
It's on.
Yeah, okay. What I wanted to say was, about 3 years ago, the head of the translation department in Beijing University came to India, and he had a mission for identifying works that deserve to be translated in each of the languages. I met him when he came to Madras looking for Tamil works to translate. And what Sahitya Academy did was gather about 10 or 15 people for each round. They conducted about 5 or 6 rounds. People in the literary milieu who were capable of recommending books. Both contemporary as well as.
Was this only fiction or Non-fiction also.
Non-fiction too. Yeah. So he did it, and then he asked us also to write a note on each of them. From each person he took about 2 words. And then I don't know what happened in the end.
Sorry, can you go to my closer?
Yeah, I don't know what happened in the end, but what I would like to say is that it was at least an attempt at recognizing that the literature of a particular language belongs to that community, okay? And that somehow the choice of work for translation must be more broad-based than simply publishers and those who have access to it. So, I mean, I think that your Rita University does something like this, right? The project of Rita University in Malayalam, I mean, what I hear,
But it failed because the Vice Chancellor's term ended and the whole thing just collapsed.
Okay,
We had a board,
yeah. Okay, so what I'm advocating here is an ideal situation in which you do involve. Otherwise, you are never going to solve the problem of leaving things out. For instance, there's a book I translated. It's only published in May, and I think the writer is 71 years old, and he's been recognized as a leading writer for 40 years. Okay, I mean, he wrote this novel when he was in his mid-30s, and it is a huge hit in Tamil. But the problem is that he simply didn't get translated. And there are several other examples of that. And there is also the limitation that the people who are writing, young writers who are doing experimental works, some of them is quite brilliant, but they'll never get past the gate in this.
And
No,
there's a
I don't know
translator
the
that can pick some
answer.
up.
I don't know the answer, but I'm just posing them as problems to be addressed seriously. If you want translation to be a social force,
Yes. We have to address all these
just
things.
as much as literature. Yeah.
Thank
Can I
you.
just quickly also respond to that, Mini, if you permit me? There is a scheme called Navodaya Sahitya Academy, which is to encourage new writers who have no publisher is willing to touch their work, especially poetry in all the national languages. So we have a lot of poetry published by Sahitya Academy of the new writers up to age 40. I think it's called Navodaya or something. Yeah.
Strong voice, Society Academy. Thank you.
Hi.
Two people, yes.
I have a point. I worked with NBT 25 years ago, so I know how NBT, and then by default I knew how Sahitya Academy functioned. And I can't agree more with our friend from Rajkamal that both NBT and Sahitya Academy, and this is nothing individual aspersions on our friends here, have in many ways failed the nation in terms of what they should have done, and particularly failed in the quality of translations. When I was in NBT in '94, I received a translation of some book who was a Sahitya Academy award-winning translator. I don't want to name them. It was rubbish English, like it was no English at all. And such people were, and this is unfortunately both the organizations being government organizations. At some time, at some points, I think with good professionals inside the organization, but because of interference of all kinds, which is the nature of the beast that Indian democracy is. And I'll give one example which comes to your first point about how much we are doing abroad with translations and Indian literature, and which Kalpana was saying that only 2 to 3% in the US is translated literature and India does not fare. So next year, France, the Paris Book Fair, India will be the guest of honor. Now I have had the opportunity to see once Frankfurt Book Fair. I've seen Frankfurt many times, but when 2006, India was the guest of honor. And I think, this is my perception, that the Germans did everything possible to showcase India. And unfortunately, Indians, with all resources from government, did everything wrong almost. Now, I'll give you one example of what was wrong. What was wrong? I'm giving a policy example. My own teacher, Bipan Chandra, was chairman of NBT at that time. So, what policy example was wrong? That the guest of honor is 2006 India. And the decision was that up till October 2006, Spanish, German, Italian, and French If you publish Indian literature from Hindi, English, etc., whatever, Bengali, Malayalam, into these 4 European languages, you will get a translation subsidy. And the translation subsidy was coming to an end in October 2006, wherein India was showcased as its complete wrong policy decision. The other thing, Kannan is here, Kartika is here, all of us, we publish private publishers, we go to Frankfurt year after year. We have not been able to do, and here NBT can play a role actually, that what Norway, Denmark, everyone does is they have a collective stand. The collective stand is just not taking off.
Thank you, thank you. I remember when Greece was, the economy was on the verge of collapse, but they brought their writers. We were not able to do that for our writers. Please, Rita, some others who want to say something.
NBT is a novel agency, and we are going to be the guest of honor at Paris, Abu Dhabi, and Guadalajara Book Fair also. So we are planning, we have a long plan to translate Indian books to their languages, translation to France and other languages. So our post is on deputation, so our period is very limited. So it is difficult to actualize all our dreams here.
True, but if you take private publishers, if you take private publishers in confidence, then you will see.
No, we have started working on that for Paris. Yes, we have time for that. We have just signed a MOU with France. So we have just started the work.
Thank you, Rita.
So we'll be in touch with our private publisher for that.
Yes.
One is that we have started golden. Better?
You can't hear, it's not working.
Better?
Yes.
Being in the profession, we have started building a repository of translators who can translate from one Indian language to another Indian language. We are taking efforts to build their translation skills as well. So, because just knowing 2 languages is not enough, so we are taking efforts for that. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is that now there is a trend of
Excuse me, who's we?
We, I mean, my group, my company. Yeah.
So what's the name of the company?
Translation Financial. We work from Pune. Yeah, and another thing is that there is a trend nowadays that those books who are doing well in English by Indian authors or by international authors, there is a trend that all these titles are being brought in Indian languages, whether or not they contribute to the language really. I mean, there are fictions, there are love stories, there are other things also, but they don't. I mean, content-wise, they are not so solid that they have to be brought in all the Indian
That way, the energy of language is mixing anyway.
So that, I mean, there is something like how you select or how you don't select. I prefer not to use the word reject, but I think that. And point number 3 is that in 2018, I visited the Frankfurt Book Fair afterwards. The whole Frankfurt Book Fair, there were 2 stalls. They were not manned or they were not enough well arranged, and they were of NBT and Satyanand. It was such a sorry.
That's true. Well, okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
There's a different issue which I cannot share here.
I think just one last question, please. One last question.
It's not really a question, it's more that for the first time in all these years that I've been in publishing, that I'm seeing NBT and Sahitya Academy on the same stage as other publishers in other languages. I'm so delighted because we have long wanted to put you on that spot and ask you all these questions. So it's been very difficult. I mean, and it's such a lot of funds you sit on, so many resources you have, and all of us struggling to do the same thing, trying to make profits on top of that. It is so good if we could talk together and make this thing work together. We're all willing to partner, but there's just been no willingness from Sahitya Academy in particular of late, or from NBT. There have been some conversations which we're really hoping will take us further. So if you are willing to talk, we're all there and talk to you.
We're all at your door.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
I talked to Nirupam on the phone about this, also what I've been thinking about for a long time and voiced for the first time in public in Calicut 2 weeks ago, which is that really the way to take translation forward is to link academia, private publishers and Sahitya Academy. You can do it. You can do it. You can have these workshops because actually the teachers, they are teachers of English literature. They don't really know how to teach translations. And they're very cautious people, they don't like change. So they don't know what to prescribe for study. And what do they prescribe? What private publishers publish. And then there are lots of worries and doubts and, is this the best? And so if there could be some sort of, you could authenticate and talk to, and then the other problem in academia is that the English literature people don't talk to the language groups. So you could bring all of us onto the same platform, and those who really have some sort of philosophy and what should I say, social conscience, let's say, about publishing for the country, and to also inform and sensitize the younger generation. If that could be done, that would be a great step forward. I've been worrying about the same thing, but really don't know what to do.
I think one concern which she mentioned, and I think we had also, is that bestsellers get translated, right? They may not really represent the best of Indian writing. So there the awareness at school level will come when we include the best in our syllabus. And we've started talking to NCERT and Delhi University and other universities. Well, that's a huge gap.
Delhi is not India. Do talk to South India.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
At least we started a dialogue.
Thank you, everyone. Tarjuma forever, Anuvad forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Before signing off, I would like to introduce, you already know her, Minakshi. Thakur has been on the panel. So she has come up with this brilliant initiative, Westland has come up with this brilliant initiative, EKA. So I think you would like to, yeah, okay. She would like to say a few words.
I'll just sum up what we've been talking, everything that we've been talking about, because
Before
all
that-
of that.
Excuse me, before that, can I say a few things? Only two lines. Actually, I have joined here as a writer. I'm a language writer, I'm a translator. Not only a translator, I have translated my book, only one novel. And actually my first and the last novel must be. So actually I have come for it. So my understanding is that the publisher or the director of National Book Trust or as a language writer, as my perspective is completely different. I can understand the frustration of the language writer. So when my book was translated, I had to take, kind of promotion from other writers. I am a site tech and an award-winning language writer. So, but many people, big authors, they have certified it is a good book. This is from language part of view, and from the as a publisher, my experience is different. I cannot say everything here. I cannot share everything because it's a government organization, and we have, you all know about the government organization. So, but definitely, because I'm a language writer, I can understand. And in my period, I'm trying my best to give my best to streamline the entire thing and to give it a more push to this thing, the translation. So
thank you. I'd like to just remind everyone of what the first president of Science Academy said. I will not let the role of Prime Minister, I won't let the Prime Minister interfere with the work of the President, because it was Nehru was your first president. Minakshi.
Yeah, so we were just, everything that we've talked about here, all these problems and challenges and interest and intent, that has led us to form this new imprint at Westland. It's called EKA, and we decided to publish original writing from the languages, translations, enable cross-translation and translations into English. It is a collaborative effort, like we were discussing, that a publisher can't publish translations in isolation. No matter how big Amazon or a HarperCollins or a Penguin is, the list has to stand on its own, it has to make money. And so we've been working very closely with Vidula, Translation Panacea, Yatra Books, because we can't identify translators alone. Or the other problem is, we haven't been selecting the books properly. The books we select should fit the temperament of the other language. The other thing is, we haven't been able to present the books right. And I agree with Satyanand that the translations that we did in the past, maybe 10 years ago or maybe before that, they might have been good translations, but the list has always been considered a lesser list in every publishing house, and the editors have always been apologetic about it. Oh, I really want to do it, but maybe the sales guys won't be interested. And so you're always sorry for doing what you do, which is not how it should be. And we don't want to be sorry about this, and none of us should be. And Karthika and I have always been talking about how we should collaborate with you guys, because Norla is here, Norway Literature Exchange, Irish Cultural Exchange. Every country has a cultural exchange, which is a counterpart of Sahitya Academy in different countries. They give generous grants to translators. Our translators have day jobs because they don't know how to make money. They would like to translate more and well, but they don't have the resources, and we don't have the resources either, because we have the authors to pay as well. No matter how fair we want to be to the translator, we have to either give one-time fee or royalty. So ICA will try to do its best. We have 100 books on the list this year in various languages, and we have a little something for you there. We are literally starting the imprint today. Yeah.